So let's stick with Tottenham, but focus now on Harry Kane. Harry Kane, obviously a major talking point this summer. Jack, as I mentioned, you wrote about the entire story, basically. Do you think, and this is a question to both of you, but beginning with Jack, of course, do you think that the Man City saga and the way that it worked or didn't work and the way that it was done, has that created some kind of irreparable damage to the striker and his relationship with Tottenham?
I think the fans have largely forgiven him, not entirely, but largely. Certainly, his first start of the season, the Paços de Ferreira Conference League game, he was really heavily applauded on. All the Spurs games I've been in recently, he has been applauded. The fans still love him, even though they are a little bit hurt by the fact that he's obviously wanted to leave this summer. I think it's slightly interesting to see how his relationship with the club will continue. Obviously, they offered him a big new contract to stay in August, which Kane said no to. He would still like to go, I think, so it remains to be seen under what circumstances that relationship is repaired. Is there another contract on the table at the end of the next season? Is there interest in Manchester United or Manchester City? So it's not that relationship isn't completely healed, but the fans do forgive him, certainly.
Yeah, and I suspect, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, a lot of that is because they have had the same complaints with the Tottenham hierarchy that Kane has had. They feel, the fans maybe feel like, and I don't know how fair this is, a lot of money was spent, but the moment when they reached the Champions League final from there on, that was frittered away a little bit. So I guess maybe that's why.
Yeah.
I suppose the other thing is this season, one of the things I find so odd about Kane, everything we see from him seems to be just judged around his goal record, which obviously is natural. That's what he's very good at, and that's why he became one of the most well-regarded players in the world. But he's doing the same stuff this season that he did early in the season. That he's probably doing it a bit slower. He looks like someone that didn't have a preseason because he didn't. But he's dropping deep to try and create angles and find passes for Son. And he's being caned for, horrible pun. He's being is the talking point. Why is he doing this? This is mad. I was just looking at his heat map. His heat map for this season is basically the same as it was for last season. He's doing Harry Kane stuff, but I wonder how he's going to cope with a whole year in the spotlight where everything is about, does he want to be here? Not, is he fit? Is he, is it a tactical thing? It's about mentality, which we've never asked that question about Kane before.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are what James gets at is there's two different issues here. One is Kane's position on the pitch, and it remains to be seen, I think, whether Nuno will basically do what Mourinho did, which is let Kane play wherever he wants. We saw in the Chelsea game, for example, he was playing as a kind of inside left, or whether he plays as a more conventional 9, which is what he did in the Wolves Carabao Cup game this week. I think, there's good arguments on both sides as to which is Kane's best position. What I do think is that Kane, and we have seen glimpses of this in the last two games, Kane is going to have to apply himself a bit more. He didn't look in the game, for example, when they lost 3-0 at Crystal Palace, but he had a good first half in the Chelsea game. He was good again against Wolves. I think he is getting a bit more physically involved. Sometimes with Kane, he doesn't always look that fit, that busy, that intense right now. And when he doesn't get you the goals and assists, then people are going to pick up on that. But I think if we can see a little bit more application from Kane from the Arsenal game and beyond, then there's no reason to suspect that he won't have another good season. He's very motivated by the Jimmy Greaves Tottenham record, the Wayne Rooney England record, the Alan Shearer Premier League record. He wants all those records. He's got to go and get them now.
And of course, this also depends on, the other outfield players that share the field with him and how they can support him as well, of course, right? So, Ndombele, Dele Alli, etc., and how they can support him and allow him to be the better version of himself. All right, let's move on to the owners here. We mentioned Daniel Levy. You know what? Fabrizio Romano said, I asked him, Jack, about, who was the biggest winner in the transfer window. And straight up, he said Tottenham, just because they kept Harry Kane and they were able to manage to contain that project. I'm wondering your thoughts about that, because yes, it's good that he didn't go, but the ironic thing is like Tottenham fans have been pleading for, please spend some money and stuff, and he was like, no, we're going to hold on to Harry Kane. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so keeping Kane was hugely important, but I think it was quite easy. Because City didn't want him that much in the end. What was important that they did do was they finally managed to refresh the squad, which is something they hadn't done for years. They got rid of Alderweireld, Lamella, Danny Rose left. They brought in Galini, Gill, Romero, Pat Matasar coming in next year. They've kind of changed the feel of the squad a bit. It no longer feels like, until recently, it's always felt like you're just watching Tottenham 2015-16 all over again. And it doesn't feel like that again this season. They've finally got some new players. Emerson Royale, they've finally got some new players in as well as bringing through, say, Oliver Skipp, who was on loan at Norwich last year. So in that sense, I think Paratici has rejuvenated the squad in quite an effective way. But they should have signed one more attacking player. They failed to sign another attacking player for the front line.
Yeah, I find that Spurs attacking line has. I think Hill from the early games and maybe what he did at the Olympics, there could be something there. But I guess he's always going to be battling with Son for minutes. It's interesting though that kind of both North London clubs had similar windows, and in fact, I think possibly the only bit of rivalry between two Premier League clubs over a signing was the right backs, or maybe not. Rivalry might not be the right word, but it was one of the rare times where you saw Premier League clubs shopping in the same market. Arsenal had conversations with Barcelona about a Bellerin Royale swap deal. Spurs were looking at Tomiyasu. I thought that for a long time that seemed like that was going to be a deal that was done, and I think it's always in a way, if Fabio Paratici wants to sign a Serie A defender, it's probably not a bad idea to go and pick him up. I think Romero might well be one of the signings of the season. We see this on the Champions League stuff and our Serie A coverage. Atalanta look bad defensively without him. He looks like a linchpin, and I haven't seen a huge amount of him at Spurs. He's obviously been in and out, as you say, because of international duty. He is someone that I would get really excited about, perhaps more than Ben White, who is a development project. Romero is the real deal from
an expensive development project, Ben White, it appears. So let's shift to the Kroenke project then. What are you makings of that, and how are Arsenal supporters feeling about it right now?
I mean, it has long since got past the stage where anything they can do can really mend burnt bridges at this club. They took their eye off the ball for years. They dealt with Arsene Wenger rather than Ivan Gazidis as chief executive, kept him on perhaps beyond his time. And I do understand that's a really hard thing to be the one to say to Arsene Wenger, we don't think you're a good football manager anymore. And so people at Arsenal will always tell you that actually the Kroenkes are the sort of owners you would want. And they make quite a tempting point about it, because they hire people and let them do the job that they are hired to do. They don't interfere. And of late, if you've asked them for money, they've said, yes, sure, because they need to give you that money to get back in the Champions League to protect the value of their asset.
Yeah.
But it's going back to something Jack was saying earlier. Daniel Levy gives the impression, sometimes to a flaw, that he is very emotionally invested in Tottenham's footballing success. Now, you speak to Stan and you speak to Josh, they will tell you that they are emotionally invested, but you don't believe them. You just don't. You don't see them at the ground. You don't ever hear from them. They don't quite know what to say. There was a moment in a recent fan forum meeting when Josh Kroenke rather clumsily spoke about, of course, the Europa League final was a disappointing result, but I had a lovely time in Baku. And it's like, read the room. Most Arsenal fans spent thousands of pounds.
So I'm wondering how much we'll see of him in the All or Nothing documentary.
Nothing.
the latter. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, say what you like about Daniel Levy, but he's been a Tottenham fan since he was 8 years old.
Right.
You can't fake that. You can't replace that. And no, that's very difficult for external owners. I mean, I'm no Arsenal expert, but my impression of the Kroenkes is that to run a top-end Premier League club right now, you have to. I mean, Liverpool are so smart, and Man United are so rich, and City are so rich and pretty smart, and Tottenham, I think, are not very rich but pretty smart for what they do, and Chelsea are a mix of both. And then I think the Kroenkes are not rich or smart really compared to the other.
You have to live it.
The other rivals,
right? You have to live it. You have to understand. You have to be right there in the trenches, I guess. And it's my, I guess, perception that that's not really the Kroenke way. You have to really be in the trench. I don't know if it helps or not, but to your point about Levy, who emotionally, for better or worse, is so involved with Tottenham. I guess Arsenal could benefit a little bit of that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But when you say, James, that he says things like that in a forum, not reading the room, it's kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. All right. Go ahead.
I would just briefly say they're competent owners,
right?
But ultimately, as Jack was saying, the clubs around them are either the playthings of billionaires or just run perfectly. And Liverpool is the model, and Liverpool is proof for both of these teams that you can be a title winner, and you have advantages Liverpool don't. You have the huge stadium and you're in London. The point with both these teams is they could be Liverpool. And I know for a fact that Josh Kroenke, there was a moment a few years ago, he was like, we're going to be Liverpool. Didn't work. Not as easy as it looks.
Well, let's end this by looking ahead to the game itself as Tottenham and Arsenal face each other in the North London Derby on Sunday. All right. Who needs to win this more? Easy question, maybe. Jack?
Well, I'm going to duck it and say it would be a disaster for either team if they were to lose. Probably even worse for Arsenal simply because they're at home. And I think Arteta is probably under slightly more pressure than Nuno simply by virtue of being there longer. So I'd say it would be worse for Arsenal to lose than for Tottenham. But I fear it could be cagey for that reason.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's almost worse losing a derby on your home patch. And I don't think it happens all that often of late. I haven't got the numbers in front of me, but I know Spurs haven't won at Arsenal since 2010 because the Arsenal players just can't imagine losing at that. It's so, for the fans that you feel like the world will cave in. I guess for people that are watching and listening to this in the States, this is a really close derby. It is one stop on the Victoria line. One stop on the Victoria line.
Seven Sisters? No, Seven Sisters to Finsbury Park. Then you can walk from Finsbury Park.
Yeah,
you can walk between the two grounds. It would take you 90 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, you wouldn't enjoy it, but you could.
Because I used to live equidistant, but I don't know anymore. But I used to live equidistant between the Emirates and White Hart Lane.
Okay, and what was that?
It was like a 45, 50-minute walk to either ground. So going on that basis, you could probably walk from one to the other in an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's close. It's like to your point, its proximity is a close one, right? So go ahead, Benge. I don't know if you want to finish that thought.
Yeah, I mean, and although therefore, you are just when you lose, you are compared to maybe even I'm sure there are examples in the States, but obviously when you lose, you are there surrounded by.
Yeah, you feel it the whole week.
You really feel it. You're going into work the next day, and and also it's such a stupid game that if you lose, your team have probably done something really dumb. I mean, we were joking about this on the preview pod, but it's like if you've lost, it's probably because Thomas Partey just went wandering off the pitch, or I'm sure Jack knows there are Spurs examples of this as well. That I always feel like it happens more to Arsenal. It's a stupid game that has like stupidly dramatic endings, and that makes it so much worse when you lose it. So, yeah, Arsenal will be desperate just not to lose, really.
Yeah, well, for the neutral, it'll be very interesting. Just an update on the table, by the way, everybody. Tottenham are 7th right now with 9 points, and Arsenal looking at 13th with 6. Obviously, still very early in the season. Let's get any updates from the squads from both sides, Jack. Anything with Tottenham? Obviously, there was a midweek Carabao Cup game against Wolves. Anybody came out there looking like they might not play this weekend, or is Nuno feeling good health-wise for his squad?
Yeah, well, it's tough because so many of the players just aren't fully fit. Kane and Ndombele didn't have proper pre-seasons because they tried to leave. The South American players came back late. They're still recovering fitness. Dyer, Son, both recovering from injuries at the moment. Bergwijn's out. So it's, even if they get a strong-looking team onto the field on Sunday, I don't think it's going to be like 100% fresh team.
Yeah, Bergwijn out is I think it's a bit of an issue. It would have been great to see him in this one. Benge, anything with Arsenal as they look ahead to this one?
Yeah, a bit of a hammer blow for them in that Granit Xhaka is available because that means one can play.
Unfortunately, Shaq is available.
Yeah, but otherwise, it's a near fully fit squad. Xhaka is the interesting one. Is on his day, good player, often performs well against Spurs and Chelsea, but then there are the games where he costs you the game emphatically and indisputably. So they've coped quite well without him, but Yes,
I mean, I'm sure Arsenal fans watching the Euros and going, "Who is this man?" Like,
yes,
it was
exactly.
All right. Well, let me be cruel here. I know that you're gonna hate me asking you this, but give me a score prediction. Come on, Jack. What is it? What do you see?
1-1.
1-0. All right.
Coward's prediction.
James?
Yeah, I'm playing it safe. Although I think it might. I agree with Jack that it should be KG, but it's the North London derby. I would go 2-2.
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, I'm going with a high scoring draw as well. I don't think I'll go at 4-0, but I'm going with I honestly would not be surprised if this is 3-0 or something like that. All right. Before we say goodbye, I would love to offer this time for both of you gentlemen to plug anything before we wrap things up. Jack, what's going on ahead with the Athletic and yourself?
So we've mainly just been looking forward to this game a lot. Writing a piece at the moment about Harry Kane and whether or not he should play as a 9 or a 10, which is a big debate amongst Spurs fans at the moment. So that'll be coming up on the Athletic just before this match.
Awesome. James Benge, what do you got coming?
Oh, in prime content that will delight fans of these two teams, I did a deep dive into why Juventus are really bad at football at the moment. So it was very fun. But other than that, nothing North London derby related, sadly.
Well, that's awesome, though. I love it. All right, Jack Pitt-Brooke, make sure that you follow him on Twitter and James Benge on Twitter as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen. The North London derby is this weekend as Tottenham visit Arsenal. Should be a cracking game, but for these two gentlemen, they hate it because it's a stupid one, but we'll see what happens. We will see you next time. Don't forget to follow us on Qué Golazo Pod and youtube.com/Qué Golazo. Leave a good rating for us, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, CBS Sports, and your CBS Sports app. Jack, thank you so much for being here, Jack.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
James, I know that I will see you very, very soon.
Yeah, you stuck with me, I'm afraid.
I am stuck with you, and I love it. We'll see you next time, everybody.